Hi, Chris. Hi, Sarah. We are here to talk about our losses and honor Suicide Prevention Month. And if it's okay with you guys, I'll start us off. My name is Bridget Schultz, and I lost my daughter, Sarah, about 2.5 years ago. She was a junior at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and she was a member of the cross country and track and field teams there. And it was something that completely took us by surprise. She, on the outside, seemed very happy, was making plans for the future, dealing with some performance anxiety, dealing with a little bit of burnout from her sport, dealing with some coaching challenges. We knew that, but for it to take such a shocking turn, needless to say, we were blindsided. And when the shock kind of wore off, she was one of 7 suicides by student athletes in a very short amount of time in that spring of 2022. And I think, like a lot of the country, left with a lot of questions as to what is going on with our student athlete community. And it led us to start a foundation in her name to bring more awareness to mental health, bring about more suicide prevention training, and talk about student athlete advocacy and really fight for rights for student athletes. And Sarah was a big believer in standing up for what she believed in, and she really believed in community and being a power for good in her school, in her community, in her team. And so that is the mission that we carry forward at the Sarah Schultz Foundation. And that's our story. Sarah, do you want to share yours?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, just honored to be on this call with you guys. Really appreciate all the work that you do. My name is Sarah Gullemy. I'm the co-founder and director of outreach of the Jordan Clark Foundation. Jordan, or we called her Clarky, was one of my teammates at a smaller Division II school called Concordia St. Paul. We were both goalkeepers on the team, and she really was my mentor. She was like a family member to me. We would always say she's a part of the Gullemy family. So when I got the call about her death by suicide on January 12th of 2021, same as you, Bridget, and I imagine, Chris, that shakeup that you feel is something that until you experience it, and hopefully other people never do, but it truly is a feeling that you can't necessarily describe in words. My whole life turned around. I went from having this person that I wanted to be exactly like, and I wanted to emulate her spirit and her passion for life. For them to suddenly be gone, that was really difficult. And of course, still is to this day. About a couple weeks after her passing, I started to meet with her mom, Lori. And we would just, have a meal together, talk about our grief, really speak transparently about our struggles and what we missed about Clarky and the impact that she left and just the realities of the grief together. And through those transparent talks, we eventually started to think of how can we continue to emulate her spirit and really shine her light even after her passing. So her mom prompted that question, and we decided to move forward with creating the foundation, kind of the go big or go home route. But we've both found it to be such like a rewarding experience to be able to do. Now, of course, the most ideal scenario would be that that Clarky would still be with us, and that none of us would have to be doing this work. But you know, being able to turn our grief into something to where we can impact others and continue to share who she was. I mean, she was such a passionate individual. She made everyone feel welcomed. She was the life of the party in every scenario. So um, you know, our mission is kind of similar to both of yours, but just focusing on suicide prevention and awareness, and really being able to continue to share her story. We work with the U.S. Center for Mental Health and Sport to provide educational sessions and suicide prevention trainings for coaches and teams across the country, mental health awareness games. We're developing a Goalkeeper Glove Give Back program for the socioeconomic portion of sports. So yeah, we're just trying to do everything that we can to continue to keep her spirit alive, and we miss her dearly, as I imagine both of you miss your loved ones. But yeah, we're just keeping the fight alive. So that's kind of my spiel. I'll kick it over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Sarah and Bridget and Sarah. I'm sorry that we both have to be here talking about the loss of our dear loved ones and the tragic pain that we've all gone through. This is a club that nobody wants to be a part of, whether you lose a sibling, a friend, a child. It's just devastating. And on behalf of the defensive line, I'm one of the co-founders with my wife, Martha, of 39 years, and my son, Solomon, who plays in the NFL. And we lost Ella January 23rd of 2018. Ella was what we call human narrator. Whenever she walked into a room, she sort of lit up the room, and she was able to find a way to connect everybody, whether you were a janitor, whether you were a CEO, whether you were a jock, whether you were a nerd, whether you were in band, or whether you just were a regular student or even a failing student. She just found a way to connect people. Was a tremendous athlete in high school. I mean, whatever sport she took up, she was great. Swimming, basketball, soccer. I mean, she just did it all. And she just also was a big giver. I mean, I tell you, Martha and I always tease, there wasn't a vacation we didn't have where she didn't take our money and give it to the homeless wherever we were at. And so she just was a big heart, but she not only gave away money, she also wanted to sit down and talk to people. She wanted to connect with them. And she just loved helping other people, particularly young kids who were abused. Unfortunately, at the university that she went to, Ella was sexually assaulted, and that actually started her demise. She was ADHD, she had depression, but she was taking medication, she was going to a therapist. But we really believe that was sort of one of the tipping points. And as we all know, it's never just one reason why someone dies by suicide. It's a variety of factors involved. And as you know, she was just in so much pain. She wanted to end the pain. We really believe she did not want to die. She wanted to end the pain. And through that journey, losing Ella, I learned something important. I didn't realize that Black people died by suicide. And that's what started our journey of starting the defensive line. Initially, we started working with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Mental Health America, NAMI, but my wife's a middle school teacher. She realized there's a gap between what exists from a research knowledge standpoint and what needed to be placed in communities of color, high-risk communities. I wasn't the only person of color who didn't believe that people of color died by suicide. So we want to help people recognize the warning signs. We want to create a world where no young person of color dies by suicide. And we do keynotes, panels, we do workshops with universities, high schools, corporations to help people recognize the warning signs so no other person has to go through the type of pain that we are experiencing here on this panel. And I just appreciate the platform that Athletes for Hope is providing us, because I think together we can help make a difference, help save lives, and just help get the message out there that it's important to focus on physical, mental, spiritual, whole health. And if we do that, I think we can save lives. And I appreciate the opportunity to do that and discuss this with you guys.
Yeah. Boy, I love your description of Ella, that she was a narrator of life, of people, and then same with Jordan. who wouldn't want to be a teammate with someone like that, right? And call her family.
Yeah.
So I think all three of them would be really proud to see the three of us sitting here telling their stories. And for me, I think there is power in sharing their story, right? And that is really where I think the power, the secret sauce kind of is in whether you're speaking to community groups, whether you're speaking to teams, whether you're talking to middle schoolers, high schoolers. It's the power of them seeing a picture of our loved one and seeing themselves in that picture, whether you're speaking to a group of adults and they see themselves in you as parents, or as Sarah, as probably in speaking to coaches, those coaches see themselves in you. And that to me is, I think, the thing that I have learned the most in these 2.5 years. As hard as it is to stand up and share Sarah's story over and over and over again, there is power in telling the story. I don't know. I'm assuming you all have that same feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I interrupt.
No, go for it.
And I apologize if I interrupt anybody, because my Wi-Fi here at the hotel is not great, but the power telling, I wasn't always there, Bridget. I coming from a corporate background, my thought was, if you share enough data, like 119 people each week under the age of 24 dying by suicide, that's 2/3 the size of Boeing 37. People will get it. If you talked about it being the number 2 cause of death for people under 24, or 17 people each day dying by suicide, I thought that would get it, but it's not. I mean, you got to have the power of the story helps people connect with the pain, the reality that could impact me or my family or my friends as well. And as Martha Saul and I go through the country and share our story, the number of people who come up and say, yes, this happened to me, or this happened to somebody that I know, directly or indirectly, it's just amazing. And I felt like it never happened before, but the storytelling, it really gets you, and it helps you understand there's a need to do something, because these are not statistics. These are human beings.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the moments that even just comes to my mind as we talk about this, and that sense of human connection. I remember when Jordan's mom and we went to an event put on at like a random hotel lobby by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I think it was with them, for survivors of suicide loss. And that was what, like, even for me, put things into so much perspective, because I mean, there are people who, understandably so, they're 15 years down the road after their loss, and they can barely speak the words. Like when they're asking about who are you here to grieve and to share about, and they're choking up by just saying their name. I think for all of us to be able to be vulnerable and open the door to conversation, like we're just continuing to push forward to, one, destigmatize things, but two, to kind of like create this sense of family and like empathy all in one, because it really is an unfortunate community to be a part of, but this is the reality that we have. We can't, no matter how much we want to bring them back, they can't come back physically. So, be able to keep their spirits alive, via community and just sharing stories. Like, even on my day-to-day job, student athletes walking in the door, I always am like, hey, I'm all about vulnerability, wholeheartedness. Those are my core values. Let's have a conversation, if you're willing, about how are these things impacting you mentally, whether it's on or off the field. So I think within our foundation, just being able to push forward with the work that we're doing, it really is such an honor. In my position, that Lori has allowed and supported me, and like has become like a teammate to me to be in this space. But yeah, really open the door conversations. It makes it so much easier to continue to push that forward.
You mentioned a key word, Sarah, vulnerability. I'm amazed that when people feel like you're being vulnerable, you're being authentic and open up, they feel like they have the permission to do that as well. I'll never forget when Solomon and then we do work with Dak Prescott's nonprofit Faith Fight Finish. Dak lost his brother to suicide, and then when the two of them got together on an American Foundation for Suicide Prevention panel, they talked about vulnerability. Man, the number of messages they've received just about, hey, you opened up, this helped me open up, and I'm now going out to get help. Both Dak and Sally talked about therapy, going to see a therapist. They talked about journaling. They talked about other coping skills, whether it's breathing exercises or meditation. And that gave other men, particularly men of color, the permission to say, wow, if this 6'4", 290-pound lineman and a 6'2" America's quarterback can talk about being open and vulnerable, I mean, it just opened up the floodgates. And I noticed that also, Sarah, when we were at University of Virginia during our D-Lines training, the number of coaches and staff members that came up and said, wow, thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable and opening up. I now feel like I've got the authorization or permission to go get the help that I need to. It just that's a key word. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's so important that we have people like Solomon and Dak Prescott, Simone Biles, and Naomi Osaka, that we do have these professional athletes standing up and speaking very openly, because it does give permission, I think, to younger, not just athletes, but just younger, I don't want to call them kids, but younger adults to say, you know what? Therapy is cool and journaling is cool. And if they're doing it, it's okay if I do it too.
Yeah. It's been incredible to see this shift. I mean, I did work with the Hidden Opponent starting in 2019, working as their Division II ambassador and running that program. And to see like groups like that, where like fighting against the stigma and breaking the stigma and utilizing those higher profile athletes, combined with the, not every day, but like the stories of collegiate student athletes and such, and sharing those so openly has been so impactful in like this massive growth of being able to say, yes, like therapy is cool, or I'm going through a mental health struggle. It's really been this incredible thing to see, because even for me personally, that's made this job, or, a lot like easier to do, or at least I don't feel as alone. I know when the defensive line came to UVA, and I spoke with Solomon briefly, just kind of one-on-one after we had ate dinner, and just like talking to him about even like the grief afterwards and balancing managing your grief while also trying to raise awareness. It's this like really difficult thing that I struggled with, and like his voice and his impact has actually changed the trajectory of my role. Like that stays with me. I think about that conversation all the time. Like we had our 5K 1 mile, and I was so like grateful for it, but I was also like immensely overwhelmed. Like I spoke on the megaphone to say, all right, everybody go, or like, this is what we're here for. And then I went and like, I broke down afterwards, and I sat on the curb and said like, I can't believe we have to do this. And I thought back to that conversation with him of like, that's okay to feel. So I'm just thinking about that on a broad scale. Like if we have individuals willing to stand up and be public facing and say like, this is okay to struggle with, this is okay to feel, like if I'm like the biggest mental health advocate and that's impacted me, I can't imagine like, a younger individual like who's starting their mental health journey or understanding it more, like that would be profound to them. So it's really a beautiful thing to see for sure.
That's a journey to get there too, because it didn't happen right away. I can tell you that after, unfortunately, Solomon has experienced loss not only of his sister, but when he was in high school, he lost his best teammate in a drowning accident, and the coaches didn't know any better. Because we weren't talking about this 7-8 years ago as much as we are, or as competently as we are right now. And his coaches told him to stuff down that grief. We can't see you cry. If you cry, everyone else will cry, and it'll just break apart. So he stuffed that down for years, and it wasn't until he finally got help at Stanford from his sports psychologist that say, get it out, let it out, don't tamp it down. But we got to start teaching coaches and leaders and bus drivers and any leader to understand that you don't tamp it down. Let them feel their feelings, let them express their feelings, and then get the help they need. And not everyone has to go to a therapist. There's so many ways you can get help. Some people want to just sit out in the woods. Some people want to go to a church. Some people want to go to a therapist. Some people want to meditate. Whatever it is that helps you. But we can't have leaders telling young athletes to stuff it down. You got to release those. Like Brene Brown said, you can't name it, you can't tame it. You got to feel your feelings.
Yeah.
The language is the limits of your limitations. So let's make sure we get that out so people can express their feelings and get the help they need the way they want to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that it should be mandatory that all coaches at the college level, I would argue that coaches in the high school and the club levels should have mandatory mental health training and suicide prevention training. I mean, Sarah's teammates, Sarah was in the hospital and they were told to run by the hospital the day after everything went down. And they thought that was going to be healing to them. And I just think that that's a perfect example of, there just was no guidance to help these coaches do anything different. And that has to change. And it has to change from the NCAA. But I would go so far as to say it needs to go beyond that, and it needs to start probably at the government level, at the state level, at the federal level, so that it funnels down through colleges, it funnels down through high schools, and it funnels down through, it has to start at these club levels, because that's where a lot of the bad behaviors start.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that that's where our organizations, that's where collaboration really can have power, right? Because we're a lot of little voices, but a lot of little voices can come together for one big voice.
Absolutely. You're so right, Bridget. I mean, the power of synergy of 1 + 1 = 3 of us, our organizations, you add on others, and go to Congress or NCAA or whatever, the Department of Education, and say, look, from kindergarten through 12, this needs to be the mental health curriculum that every teacher needs to know about, that every teacher shares with students. I mean, how the brain works, how your feelings work, how do you deal with stress? I mean, those things are like, it's basic and fundamentals. 1 + 1 = 2. We got to have that as part of our curriculum from kindergarten all the way through universities. I mean, and then it's not just a one-off, it's systemic. And then when you teach that in schools, you teach that in churches, you teach it at the YMCA, the Big Boys and Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or Boys and Girls Club, or whatever community organization that exists within each part of the country, that then creates a systemic approach of how to deal with mental health, how to deal with feelings, how to recognize somebody who's in pain, and what to do. I mean, teaching people about 988 or 741, 741, it still shocks me that only 25% of the US still knows what 988 is or knows how it works.
How many times do you talk about 988 in presentations and no one raises their hand to identify that they know it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's like so important because what you both are talking about, like the proactive component of things. I think that's what I've experienced firsthand, like how much that impacts your life. Like I think about it from a collegiate athletics standpoint. And when I was at Concordia, I got an email saying that one of my friends, Tia, had passed, and it was sent to the whole campus. And I was in class, and it had just happened that morning. Some of her family members weren't even notified. And you think, like, you would never imagine for these things to happen that way, but like that is the reality. Like I know that we can't be the only university that has ever experienced that. Or like, I got a frantic phone call about Clarkie because the football team had found out before the soccer team, and we didn't have time. We weren't able to get on the call for the emergency meeting before even being notified. So then you have another, like, one of my good friends and fellow teammate had to break the news to other people. And it's just like on a broad scale, there's so many ways that we can help prepare places and be more proactive, and install educational components and programs to where, one, hopefully stuff like this never happens, but like we have to be prepared for the realities of mental health. Like, I dealt with suicidal ideation quite a bit. I'm medicated. I've gone through these things, but like that was from my own doing, of like forcing, like my parents being like, hey, you need to go see someone. And I'm fortunate for that. But like, it wasn't from like a university standpoint, or when I was in high school, nobody talked about it. When I lost my cousin to suicide my freshman year, that was the first time I had ever experienced loss by suicide. Like, same as you, Chris, of like, I didn't really think that people died by suicide. That wasn't something that we talked about. So then all of a sudden to get this onslaught of like 3 people passing and dying by suicide in about 3 years, there's no way for the human brain to even comprehend and be able to handle those immense changes and griefs and everything. And so I think if we're just, able to implement things that make mental health at the forefront of efforts, we're going to help people in the long run. Like, whether it ends up being grief that they're feeling, unfortunately, or if it's just helping them in their mental health journeys and understanding like that's okay to feel, it's going to help so many people. It's like really pushing at that higher level of saying, okay, we want this on the table. We want this to be a trickle down thing where we aim for the top, see who all we can get, and then work our way down to integrate it into high schools, clubs, like you mentioned, Bridget.
Yeah. And I think, so obviously there are differences in resources when we're talking about colleges, D1 to D3. But I think, again, the power of us going out there and sharing our stories is we also can bring awareness to, there are so many free programs that are there for people to bring to their schools, to their clubs, to their teams. And I think that again is what we can do as, unfortunately, storytellers of our loved ones, but we can also share, all of the free resources that are out there, so that we can't hear, well, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources. Well, you know what? Your university may not, but here's a program that's free.
Absolutely. There's so many free things that we can do, aside from mentioning all the different resources that exist nationally, locally, and on campuses. That's one of the things I love when we did at the University of Virginia is we talked about what are the local resources on campus that you as a student, as a coach, as a staff person can use, because they had some excellent resources. And then what I loved about them as well is they shared that within their community. So UVA shared it with Stanford shared it with TCU shared it with the University of Wisconsin or Minnesota, and all that sharing helps share best class. But then also sharing key things like key information, like what we call mythbusters, that if you ask someone if they're going to die by suicide, they're not going to go out and die by suicide. You're not going to create that thing in their mind that says they want to go out and die by suicide, or that only an expert can stop somebody from dying by suicide. That's anybody can help somebody to die by suicide. And the other key thing is helping people with the language to not say commit suicide, but die by suicide. The number of times I hear people say commit suicide, I know it's not. They're not being malicious, but people don't commit cancer. They don't commit kidney disease. They die by cancer. They die by kidney disease. They die by suicide because 90% of those who die by suicide had a diagnosable mental health condition, before the time of the death. That's according to AFSP, Mental Health America. So sharing those kind of facts, or what we call mythbusters, helps educate people.
Yeah, so key to share the common myths, right, around suicide. Um, I always think it's interesting that there is still, like, even news media, they'll, still be very cautious about even covering an event about that might be by the AFSP or, by any of our organizations. And they'll say, well, if it's about suicide, we're not sure. Well, we're saying, no, what we're trying to do is bring awareness to suicide. It's okay to talk about suicide. That's how we stop this. That's how we educate people on it, right?
Yes, so
Absolutely.
true.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot about Virginia, and I think that's really interesting because we also have done a lot of work with University of Virginia's swim team. And so much of what you both have said was our experience also at that school. I think it would be interesting to hear like other experiences that you guys have had with schools of all shapes and sizes, of maybe positive things that you saw other schools bring about because of the work you did there.
Do you want to start, Chris?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that we've had the fortunate pleasure of leveraging Solomon's platform to not only, sometimes he comes to us on campus, sometimes he doesn't. Like University of Virginia, he did come with us. He also came with us to Stanford and TCU. And in those examples, and this happens also when he doesn't attend, but for him to talk one-on-one to the student athletes about how he dealt with his injuries, and when he was down and not with his team, how he dealt with that stress, that depression, him, like to Sarah's point earlier, being vulnerable, that helped them identify with the fact that, one, it's okay to not be okay. Two, as we go through the skill building of helping leaders understand the warning signs, we go through our D lines. D is for don't ignore your gut. L is listen for the signs. I is interact with the person who's a concern. N is name the concern. E is evidence of concern. And S is create a safe and supportive environment. And under safe and supportive environment, we talk about how to make sure that kids aren't being microaggressed or experiencing unconscious implicit bias, or if the kid had adverse childhood experiences, how you recognize that so they get the help that they need. And it almost in every situation, particularly here at TCU, we had a coach say that because we walk through those signs and we walk through the talk, mood, behavior warning signs that AFSP puts out. And once again, sometimes it's not just one, it's never just one, but for them to recognize that a student came to him and shared where they were at and that they were concerned and they were thinking about dying by suicide, and he actually made a plan. That coach knew that's a warning sign, intervened, got that student athlete the help they needed. And the director of student affairs emailed us a week after that happened and said, look, because of your discussion, because Solomon talked about vulnerability, that person opened up, that person recognized the person who was at risk, recognized the signs, and they got the help. If we never help anybody else for the next decade, just that saving that one person is worth all the pain and effort that we've gone through to share our story, to share, putting together the evidence-informed, D-lines training, all that help. And it seems this happened every time we've had this discussion, whether it's a panel or workshop, that where people are opening up, recognizing the signs, and they're getting people the help that they need. So that, is just something that we feel blessed to be able to do. And we just want to continue to do that at universities, high schools, corporations. We want to work with other organizations like yourselves and just do it across all campuses. And then once you do it once, it's not like you do it once and it's a fix. You got to continue to educate. And that's where other people can come in and they can share how they deal with suicide prevention or mental wellness, because everybody, I think, has some success stories they can share. And I would think the more we can share, the better we are.
Yeah. When I think about kind of like the impact and as we grow, we've been able to, fortunately have those experiences kind of similar to what you're talking about, Chris, of people coming up after presentations. And so for our collaboration with the U.S. Center for Mental Health and Sport, a lot of times we're just sponsoring those. And due to our size and current state, we're not traveling with them. But they're incredible humans who are based out of Clemson, so we trust them. But to hear the story, I remember one time receiving an email recap about one of the sessions, and there was somebody who was visibly upset, or, you know, kind of in a vulnerable state during the session, and they walked out, and one of the administrators, they left the room after, or, you know, like shortly after, to make sure that they were okay. And they opened up about how I believe their kid was dealing with being a part of the queer community, and, you know, showing these obvious signs. So they're hearing this presentation and they're thinking, that's my child. And to be able to then, you know, turn the page and move forward. And they basically said, like, I could set aside my personal feelings or my personal concerns to ensure that my child is safe and feeling supported and loved no matter what. And to think that comes from a training session that we can provide is such an incredible feeling. And it makes it, like you mentioned, Chris, like so worth it, because this work is not easy by any stretch. But be able to have those moments come to fruition because of the work that you're doing is incredible. And I think about, we just worked with Crookston, University of Minnesota Crookston, which is a team that we played in our conference at Concordia, and they held a mental health awareness game and partnered with us, and to, you know, see like the little videos that they do for it, and just talking about the importance of mental health, making the t-shirts, having, you know, flyers out, like, it's just like amazing to see that it's starting to be incorporated into the kind of like the daily life or like the daily events. Because you think, okay, you were always going to have a pink out game for breast cancer awareness. Like, you have these staple things, and to be able to say, like, okay, my foundation is a part of creating a mental health version of that to bring awareness and like reducing that stigma. It's so special, and it really like fills my cup. So in the moments where maybe I'm struggling a bit of being overwhelmed by the work and I need to take a step back, which is totally okay, you know, being able to assess and see the positive changes, it's really rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. We, unfortunately, in the community that we live in, that we raised our kids in, lost Sarah. And then 6 weeks before, our community lost another college student athlete, Katie Meyer. And Katie, a Stanford soccer player, and Sarah, we literally live 15 minutes apart. Our two families did not know each other. We have since become very, very close, and our two families decided we needed to do something together for our community. So last year we put on this event called Together for Mental Health, and it was designed to be an open dialogue for our community about mental health. And we brought in presenters. We had over 1,000 people there. And the feedback that this event gave both us and the Myers for months afterwards was unbelievable. And I'll just share this story really fast. This was months after the event, and I was leaving the grocery store, and this woman stopped me. I didn't know her, and she said, I just have to come give you a hug. I went to your event, and I brought my friend, and my friend learned some of the warning signs and ended up recognizing them in her child, got her child into therapy. And we both believe, because of this event, you saved our child's life. And it just, as hard as it is, like we all have said, as hard as it is to tell our stories over and over again, it's something like that you say, okay, this is why we're doing what we're doing. And So it's interesting. I mean, we're doing this event again because we were so empowered by it. And we decided, okay, what else can we do about mental health? So we decided we're going to continue the conversation. And this time we're going to talk about tools and what we want everybody in the audience to go home learning something that they can do right then, right there for their mental health. And then maybe learn something else that they can bring to their team, to their community group, to their classroom. And maybe there's a resource in the lobby and it's a free program that you can bring to your school, to your team. And so we kind of think that this is just sort of our mission and our gift that we're going to keep giving to our community and live stream it out to whoever else wants to listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's phenomenal. Talk about synergy and partnership and taking action together to save lives. What a beautiful example that you and Steve and Gina Myers, you two organizations did. And that's just one of the people that came up to you. I guarantee you there were probably a half a dozen more that impacted and made a difference. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's, again, we never knew each other and never wanted to know each other in this way. But so grateful for our friendship and the support. And again, it's the power of our voices coming together, right, to make our mission louder. And I just think that is maybe the future of this fight. Unfortunately, there's too many, Ellas and Jordans and Sarahs and Katies and Morgans and, Tyler Helinskys and all the, there's too many names and stories that are out there. But if we can all come together and with our stories, then maybe we can make a difference.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's so important that as we're, working with, local school boards or local elections or national, regional, that we support people who want to talk about whole health. This one thing is I've learned, that this suicide is indiscriminate. It isn't rich or poor. You could be a billionaire. You could be on the street. You could be right wing, left wing. You could be middle of the road. You could be Hindu, Christian. It impacts everybody. This is bipartisan. This is a human issue. And that's why I think it's important that we keep working with people that will work with us to make the difference and getting curriculum change so that we're talking about this K through 12. That gives us the resources that we need to make sure 988 is broader and more effective and is not just a one-off. It's funded, forever. We just keep working the things that we know are saving lives, all the protective factors, whatever it is. We just got to find a way to get people like that in the places they need to be to make a difference.
Amen.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're preaching.
Preaching.
Yeah.
I vote for you.
We got to get into our churches too, because I think the more our churches, because if we can find a way to work this within the schools, the churches, the schools, the universities, all the community-based stakeholders or systems, that will then have a holistic effect on our local communities.
Yeah, the true whole body, right?
Yeah.
I think it just normalizes that. Like if you have it in every facet of your life, it's going to feel like it's something that you can talk about. Like it's kind of the same thing as like any other thing in life. If you're constantly seeing it or hearing about it, you're going to be way more used to it. And I think that that's the biggest hurdle. It's just like the stigma and just the, like, I don't know if like recognizing it probably, is the right word, but, being able to have that as a part of your life and a part of your understanding and like your toolbox and things like that, it's essential.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And being proactive. I mean, not pull people. Don't, like, we love this Desmond Tutu quote. We got to start going upstream and figure out why people are falling in the river versus pulling them out. Let's stop pulling them out. Let's figure out why they're jumping in to begin with. And if we're proactive and preventative and just like you said earlier, Bridget, holistic and systemic, Sarah, I think that will help us, because you think about it, the U.S. is the only developed country where our suicide rates are going up.
Yeah.
All the other countries are going down. I know part of it is lethal means, but also part of it is leveraging the right data, the right research, making sure we're looking at this from a diverse perspective, but also making sure we're looking at this holistically. And I think that can help the U.S. get to where other countries are, because right now we are behind.
Yeah. And I have two other college-age daughters, and, when they were incoming freshmen, they watched alcohol awareness videos. They watched about, sexual, what's proper sexual behavior.
Yep.
And I just don't understand, how hard is it to watch a video on suicide prevention and where your resources are on campus.
Yes.
I laughed because my youngest daughter, I moved her out of her dorm last spring. And as we were moving, I noticed there was a sticker on her dorm refrigerator, and it was 988. And I said to my daughter, whose name is Ella,
oh my goodness, wow.
I said, Ella, did you notice that sticker on your refrigerator? This is, mind you, move out. She's been in this dorm room all year. And she said, Mom, I never even noticed it the entire time. This is my daughter who lost her older sister to suicide. She is very aware of 988, and she is very aware of resources. And this sticker was right in front of her, and she never noticed it.
Unbelievable.
Right. And again, that's a college that was well intentioned in putting it there, but it just didn't go the extra mile in identifying it and explaining it. And I just think our colleges and universities can do a better job of educating not just its student athlete population, all of its population.
Yes, amen. Yeah, what you're talking about, Bridget, is social behavior change. We just can't just talk about awareness. We got to also work on implementation and intervention and prevention and postvention, all those things that then help us change social behavior. Because, like you mentioned, when Mothers Against Drunk Drivers start talking about designated drivers, making sure people recognize when they were driving tipsy. They talked about social behavior changes. We got to do the same thing, with suicide prevention and mental health. Then I think we'll start making some systemic long-term impact.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what we need to push for going forward. I guess as we're getting ready to wrap up, do you guys want to talk about things that you have coming up at Defensive Line and the Jordan Clark Foundation?
I'll be glad to kick off. And I'll tell you that, unfortunately, this is where I'm not very good. This is where my wife and our social media person, Sandy, are really good. So I want to direct you to our social media, which is at the Defensive Line for YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as Instagram, and for X or Twitter, wherever they call it, it's just at Team Defensive Line. I do know that we're doing some work with, like you mentioned, Morgan's Message. We got a webinar. I think it's tonight or tomorrow. We're going to be at the American Psychiatric Association doing a panel later this week as well. We just left the Clinton Global Initiative here in New York. That's why I'm still in New York, in a hotel room. There's going to be some follow up from that, and then we're going to continue to be doing panels with corporations and universities, and we'll post on our social media the different workshops that we got going on throughout the country. But we've got something going on almost every week, and what it reminds me though of also is the fact that we as social ambassadors or social suicide prevention, mental health ambassadors, I know I for myself don't do a good job of practicing what I preach. So at some stage I hope to get some balance, but we're going to keep talking so we can help save lives, but hopefully do it in a way where it doesn't hurt us.
Amazing work you guys are doing.
Yeah, definitely all about that balance for sure. I know with the Jordan Clark Foundation, we just had our 4th annual Race to End Suicide Memorial event in Eagan, Minnesota, and then we had virtual. So fantastic turnout. We had about 340 participants, the most ever virtually. Near 80 of the people were virtual, which was really cool to just see the map of the states line up a little bit more. So, we're all about growth. We're so fortunate to have about $40,000 fundraised through that event. So we're just excited to now continue our partnership with the U.S. Center for Mental Health and Sport and continue to provide sessions. So that's really what we're trying to do, is expand our reach on that, where universities, organizations, clubs can reach out to us and express interest. So we do have a pamphlet that I can make sure is probably linked on our Instagram, but now that we're transitioning out, but yeah, it's kind of figuring out that balance. Our Instagram is at J. Clark Foundation, so pretty simple. It's my twin sister runs the show on that, so she kind of leads the charge. But and then we're planning on doing a local Eagan based in Minnesota pickleball event, hopefully in January, as just a fun way to take a really difficult time with her anniversary of her passing, and being able to bring the community together, have a little bit of fun, do some raffles, a kind of a smaller scale event. So we're really just continuing to build relationships, expand, working on legislative things as well with the Mental Health Alliance, specifically for Virginia, since I'm here. So hopefully that gains some traction of focusing on making sure coaches are properly educated, and that's mandated from the Virginia state level. So yeah, we kind of got our hands in a bunch of different things, but the Instagram is definitely the best way to see what's going on for sure.
Yeah. And I'll just echo kind of the same thing, that you can follow all of where we're at and what we're doing at Sarah Schultz Foundation on Instagram, on our website, and our Together for Mental Health event is on October 7th. And we'll be live streaming it on Instagram, so you can check that out. This was a really, really nice conversation. I feel like I got to know Ella. I feel like I got to know Jordan. So thank you all so much for spending this hour with me.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
My heart is full. So
Yeah.
thank you both. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, you guys.